Yesterday, Chris Roberts hopped on the Star Citizen Spectrum forum to deliver some very welcome information about what's been going on with Star Citizen's latest patch, and even a little bit of maybe hidden info about what to expect from, say, Squadron 42. Now, Chris Roberts has gone from being a more regular figure on a podcast-like show about Star Citizen to a more behind-the-scenes director of the game, so it's less frequent that we actually get to hear from him directly. But when we do, it's usually about big-ticket items, and yesterday was exactly that. Content creator and streamer Tarada, who is well known for his extremely impressive flying skills and cinematic videos, made a lengthy post about quality of life features that he and his community would like to see in the game. All of his suggestions are absolutely spot on, and awesomely Chris responded to his post, which is unusual. Firstly, he complimented Tarada on his content, and then dove into a very interesting explanation of why things have been so problematic since the 3.18 patch where persistence was added to the game. His response reads as follows: "This year has been an especially difficult one in terms of stability and quality of life due to the rollout of persistent entity streaming in 3.18. The whole way we track and record state of the universe changed dramatically, which also changed the way we handle the data in the backend in the cloud. Because of how we record state with PES, we needed to switch to a different kind of backend database, so we moved from a SQL relational database to a graph database. Unfortunately, the graph database we selected, despite being one of the best rated ones and intended for enterprise scale, has had major issues at load, causing the database to lock up and all the queries from the game servers to stall out. This happened on the 3.18 launch, where it took a lot of effort to stabilize, including some engineering on our side to lessen the load on the database. We thought we had this issue solved, but the most recent version of the database software was a step backwards, and we've had additional lockups at load, which was happening for periods on Wednesday, just after we launched the 3.20 patch, and on Thursday, Friday, and very briefly on Saturday. We rolled back to an older version and disabled some of the features last night that we suspect may be contributing to the instability. Ironically, we think the replication to mirror databases for full redundancy is a culprit to the database lockups. This looks to have stabilized things. The backend database getting into a bad state manifests in multiple ways to infinitely spinning inventory windows, missing items, and degrading game performance. We went with an off-the-shelf enterprise-level database for stability and resilience, as there's already a lot of new tech in Star Citizen, so as frustrating as the software that should have been rock solid is the biggest offender in making Star Citizen's experience even more unreliable. We have the top engineers from the database company working on this, and we are also assessing other databases to switch to if the unreliability of the current solution continues. One way or another, we intend to have this solved in the very near term, and the game coming back to 3.17.x stability levels. Now, his statement goes on, but I want to interject here and sort of commiserate with Chris on this. Star Citizen is such a crazy ambitious project that they've had to more or less develop all of the underlying tech for their game. Sure, the game started on the CryEngine, then migrated to Lumberyard, which is an evolution of the CryEngine for the Amazon Web Service integration, but they've ultimately had to do so much work to the engine to get it to simulate, an entire universe that it really became the Star Engine at this point, and there just isn't really anything out there built to support what this game actually needs, so they just have to make it themselves. And when they try to make life easier on themselves by taking an already trusted graph database software and integrate it to the engine, the third-party software fails under the load of the game. It really sucks because Star Citizen critics are so hard on this game for making slow progress, but it's rarely recognized that the game has to invent all of its tech just to exist. I hope they don't have to write their own database software for this game and that they can get it working on the software that they're paying for, but again, scalability has been the Achilles heel of Star Citizen, and if this database can't handle it, it doesn't sound like it's going to be a quick fix. Then again, I don't really know the details of running a giant game database, and Chris seems to think that they could have it solved in the very near term, but again, that is Chris estimating a timeline, so that could mean just about anything. He then goes on to say this: "We are also very focused on improving quality of life, both annoying bugs that have been around for for way too long, and some things that we need to address to make the experience fun and welcoming. Your list is great in this respect, as a lot of your suggestions are on our to-do list. We did get some quality of life fixes in 3.20, like the QT HUD being lined up properly, but not nearly as much as the team or I would like. We will be working on knocking out bugs and improving quality of life pretty continuously from here on out. There's a lot of great tech and features that we're bringing into Star Citizen from Squadron 42 that will dramatically change the feel and polish of Star Citizen. For instance, a lot of your suggestions on the game's comfort and readability have been addressed in the changes we made for Squadron 42. The plan has always been to bring this work into Star Citizen. Squadron 42 was just a good way for us to focus and really polish the feel and usability without the pressure of maintaining functionality as we iterated on it for the always live environment of the PU. We've now hit an inflection point in Squadron 42's development that allows us to start bringing this work into Star Citizen in the near future. I'm very excited for CitizenCon, as we will be sharing a lot of these features and more. It'll be great to be in front of the crowd and spending time with the community in person. It's been 4 years since the last in-person CitizenCon. So this final bit from Chris is very interesting, and perhaps we can read between the lines here as to what it actually means regarding Squadron 42's progress. When Chris says we've now hit an inflection point in Squadron 42's development that allows us to start bringing this work into Star Citizen in the near future, that actually says a whole lot. Looking at it from a developer point of view, if it takes a long time to migrate features from one game to another, well, you don't want to migrate those features until they're completely finished, so that you only have to do it once. Lots of reports from CIG and other sources have suggested that Squadron 42 is entering a much more completed state and potentially getting prepared for an actual release. Obviously, that's been a meme for a long time now, but this time the information seems to be adding up with a lot more supporting evidence. When Chris said that we'll be working on knocking out bugs and improving quality of life pretty continuously from here on out, that sounds great as well. For the longest time, the general sentiment behind Star Citizen's development was to add features and just move forward with little regard for the quality of life and polish of those features. However, as the game inches closer to having its core tech in a more complete state, and many players actually treating the persistent universe like a live service game, it makes sense that CIG may actually be in a position to spend some time on the health of the game rather than just racing towards the next semi-functional feature. The small things like the quantum jump heads-up display being properly lined up now makes a huge difference in the overall perception of the game and accessibility. A lot of veteran players have figured out how to play Star Citizen despite the extreme bugs and glitches, and we almost don't notice them sometimes because we're so used to working around them. And I think we tend to forget that a lot of these little issues that we're just so used to dealing with are actually hard blockers for most new players. Terada made a long list of things that this game could use, and I'm sure he was holding back and keeping it to the most important stuff, because the quality of life things that Star Citizen needs are massive. The devs could probably spend a year easily just fixing everything that's not really working as intended. And I think a lot of players who have been flying around the verse for a while recognize that what's in the game currently actually is quite a fun experience if you're not constantly dealing with all the bugs and glitches. Imagine if they launched Xenothreat without any sort of bugs or performance issues. It would probably be a fantastic event, but it's always buggy and it's always glitchy, so players don't really look forward to it. If CIG really does intend to work on improving quality of life pretty continuously from here on out, it could be great for the game. But of course, that all sounds great. First, they have to fix those massive database issues and server stability. We'll see what the future holds. Hopefully, it holds a Squadron 42 launch. What do you guys think we're going to see at CitizenCon coming up at the end of October? Maybe a Squadron 42 release date announcement, or is it still too soon? Let me know in the comments, and next up, check out my patch 3.20 first impressions video here. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.